some people them be tiffy tiffy. That on na to shapo shapo. Chief Timbabu na to lutu lutu. Them be gang up looters. The people them be tiffy tiffy. That on na to chapo chapo. Chief Timbabu na to lutu lutu. Them be wicked leaders. Oh, gang up looters. Chief Timbabu on na to tiffy tiffy. Them be gang up looters. Why you dey thief oh? Why you dey thief our money? Gang up looters. You dey borrow things with our money.
Chapter 1. Endassa was located right in the heart of Lasageria, but this is not the reason for why it was considered to be an indispensable part of the map of the region. The primary incentive was its highest oil-producing assets. Ever since the prices of oil started touching the skies, Endassa grew in power and took more significant steps towards a more stable economy until it was the steadiest economy in the entire region, making its governor Bodega one of the most influential people in the country. Endassa was relatively smaller than the other states surrounding it, but its behemoth economy made it the big fish that it was. Some even called it the golden goose, with all the oil reservoirs lusciously ripened and ready. As per the most recent World Bank report, Lasageria stood firm in the top 25 wealthiest countries in the entire world for its oil reserves in Endassa, with a secure position in the financial industry in the continent. Apart from the oil production, the governor was planning to promote tourism, since the different ethnic groups' colorful heritage and beautiful forests and caverns surrounded by waterfalls and beaches could be an excellent attraction for the tourists if showcased wisely. The president had a special bonding with the governor Bodega for his dedication and love towards the nation. The respect Bodega earned came after a long journey of hard work and sacrifices on his end. Some he wasn't even sure if he wanted to take. He practiced law before joining politics, and as soon as he stepped into the public affairs and that of the state, he knew precisely why it was termed as a dirty business. Despite his feelings towards politics, Bodega was great at what he did. He was loved by commoners and the people involved in the affairs of the government equally, or at least it seemed that way. He was a leader born to show people the light at the end of the tunnel. He had the courage it takes to achieve the impossible, and he had a love for his homeland and his people that was what made him the nation's hero. It was a regular morning in the governor's residence, except for a slight change in the dynamic governor's mood. Bodega was agitated and unsettled, unlike his usual confident self, for a reason his assistant Akachi could not decipher. As Akachi went through the details of how the governor's day was further planned, he realized that Bodega was not quite ready to start his day at all, which was surprising because he was always looking forward to parties and charity events. Maybe he is sick or something, Akachi told himself as he looked at the slightly green shade on the governor's face. Only if he knew what had been eating Bodega on the inside, Akachi would ask him to lock himself up in his room once again. Bodega was sweating so much that his wife, Awiti, who was eating breakfast with their children at the dining table across from the room, noticed it too and approached them with a worried expression. "What is it, Leif? Are you all right?" She murmured as she touched his forehead. "Jaja, I am fine." Bodega held her by the shoulders and pushed her away gently, making sure he doesn't look her in the eye. She was Awiti, the woman he loved, the woman who knew him inside out, and he did not want to worry her by any means. He looked at his giggling daughters, so carefree and filled with innocence, and he knew he had to do everything he could to protect his family. "Akachi, what are we doing after the hospital dedication today?" Bodega cleared his throat and asked, his voice not as weak as it sounded earlier. "Sir, meeting with the advisor before lunch, the invitation for lunch has been accepted by the Japanese delegation, and you are invited as the chief guest at the hospital dedication today." Akachi started animatedly like a radio program. Nothing after that. Bodega questioned him in a flat tone. Dinner with the Akachi began, but was interrupted by the governor. Cancel everything lined up for the evening. I have to be somewhere else. But, sir, what could be more important than dinner with the state officials? Akachi started freaking out. Something that should not concern you, Akachi. Back off. And do as I told you to do. Bodega seemed to be an entirely different person, and Akachi knew exactly not to cross him with that mood. Breakfast was a quick event as Bodega looked as nervous as he had been throughout the family routine, with Awiti watching like with a worried expression. Once they were done, Bodega hugged and kissed his daughters Dalia and Leila, who were twins, and held them longer than he usually would. Then he turned to Awiti, kissing her forehead, he murmured, Leafling, do take care and be strong no matter what, okay? And what does that mean? Stop scaring me like that, buddy, as if you were going somewhere or leaving us. Are you? Awiti was now on the verge of crying. Awiti, hey, you are the strongest woman I have known. Do not speak like that. You are the one our girls look up to. Just be there for them even if I am not. Being a government official is not easy. Who would know it better than you? It gets crazy sometimes. What are you so nervous about? Please tell me, Awiti begged. She knew her husband was someone who always gave an air of confidence wherever he went, and it was so unlike him to be so fidgety. Nah, it is nothing. It's been a long time since we got to relax. I think we should plan a vacation. Bodega tried to sound nonchalant. That is it, Awiti searched his eyes. Yeah, my leave. Now I should better be going, don't want to be late. And I might be late tonight. Do not wait for me, eat without me, and go to bed. He kissed her forehead again and left the room before he could crumble in front of his wife and daughters. As he reached his office, he found his advisor waiting for him already, looking as nervous and as green as Bodega himself. Without saying a word, he opened the door for Bodega and waited for him to get inside so he could follow. But Bodega stopped in his tracks. Akachi, you stay here. Also, we are not to be disturbed unless we come out. Akachi was shocked once more but chose not to say anything. Bodega and the advisor, Hakana, went into the office and locked the door behind them. Hours passed and Akachi grew restless as all he could think about was the meeting with the Japanese delegation. He didn't want to be late or worse, cancel it knowing that this meeting is crucial in developing a trade relationship with Japan. Before Akachi could knock on the door, he saw them coming out of the room, looking greener than before. What exactly could be so nerve-wracking that these two do not want to share with him or anyone, he wondered. Walking towards Akachi, Bodega took his handkerchief out and cleaned his forehead. Is it time for lunch already? Bodega entreated him as if he was dreading that the day was passing too fast. Yes, sir. Akachi gulped and nodded. Are we ready to leave? Can you get me a cold drink of water, please? The governor's voice was a little shaky too. Akachi scrutinized him and went, Sir, are you okay? You are sweating bullets. Yes. Just get me some water, please, Bodega replied. Akachi fetched him some water which he downed in one gulp and took some heavy breaths. Let's go get those Japanese. Bodega smiled awkwardly and they were ready to leave. The lunch went pleasantly on the contrary to Akachi's expectations. Bodega looked like his usual confident self again, like he was wearing a mask. There were talks of a huge deal coming up from the Japanese delegation that would make Endassa not only the most powerful state in Lasageria, but one of the most powerful states in the entire world, and all the eyes were on that deal. As calm and composed that Bodega was, there was something about him that worried Akachi. The calm demeanor was just on the surface. Inside, he was a burning man. Something was eating him up. Something he was helpless about. Something that he could not fight. Akachi had been with Bodega for years and he wished the governor would trust him enough to share what was bothering him. Maybe he could help. Akachi would take a bullet for Bodega, that much he was sure of. Then why wouldn't he tell him what was wrong? After the launch, they were to head straight for the capital, which was constructed in the memory of the bomb blast victims that killed around 47 people in a remote area of Lasageria. Bodega looked over each and every step of the making of the hospital personally. It was like his dream project. He had once told Akachi, "When I would see sick children being treated in the hospital for free, I would know that I have made a difference." Even the agonizing worry could not fade Bodega's excitement for the hospital inauguration. As soon as they reached the hospital venue, they were pounced on by the paparazzi. Bodega was the beloved of the nation, and these reporters would never skip an opportunity to click him in public. The speech he was to make in the ceremony was much anticipated, as everyone wanted to know how the deal with Japan would help their economy rise higher. The surrounding area of the venue was brimful, with the commoners gathered there just to have a glimpse of their leader. The people of Lasageria were filled with gratitude for his services to the nation. Bodega waved at the people with a huge grin plastered on his face, each pore of him radiating love for the nation. As they reached the internal entrance, they saw how the hospital team had put a massive poster of Bodega, and the whole place was covered with flowers. Everyone waited till Bodega waved to the people once again and took the scissors from Akachi so that he could cut the ribbon. As the ribbon was cut, there was a massive cheering from the people around them. Bodega's eyes were filled with the tears of joy as he knew his dream had finally come true. They were shown around all the wards and emergency rooms, including the vicinity where the students learning to become doctors would live. That was the space Bodega had most hopes for. The more doctors come out of it, the more sick people would get treatment and care. Bodega had a vision for a more prosperous Lasageria, where every child has a belly full and has proper access to education. Not just Endassa, but the whole country must have these basic needs, was his motto, and that is what he was loved for. After the tour and the inspection, they were all rushed into the big conference room where all the elites of the society were gathered to hear what Bodega had to share about the deal. There was another enormous poster of Bodega's smiling face etched near the stage, which he looked at smiling the same way, knowing it was his people's love for him. As he walked up to the day and stood in front of the podium, the crowd suddenly went silent. Bodega began. "My dear people, we are gathered here today to pay our tribute to the scared lives lost in the heinous blast. We cannot bring them back or make things right for the mourning families, but we can make sure that incidents like that never happen again. Never will any family mourn their loved ones again. Every life is sacred and should be treated as such, and therefore we planned to establish this medical facility for the sick and the ones battling for their lives. I request you all to support causes of the like so that in the war with the darkness, humanity wins. Also, I promise you all a better tomorrow as we are in the middle of finalizing a deal with Japan that will take Endassa to the heights it has never seen before. Good times are coming, where each one of my people will be prosperous and happy. All I ask you for in these times is your prayers and support. Together, we shall all touch the sky." The thunder of applause was so loud that nobody could hear anything else. People knew that their governor was the man of his word, and if he is making a promise, he will make sure he lived it. The walk back to the car was strenuous as everyone wanted to shake hands or give flowers to Bodega, who suddenly looked nervous again after looking at his watch. Akachi walked faster than ever so that they dodged the erupting crowd, but Bodega was literally dragging his feet, which was making it harder to do so. After what felt like forever, they were finally in the car and the driver drove off as soon as they were in. "Sir, what exactly do we go now?" Akachi turned to look at Bodega, who was in the seat behind. "Nowhere," sighed Bodega and pulled out his wallet where he had a picture of his happy family. The girls giggling as usual, and Abuti as radiant as the sun. They were his lifelines and they were keeping him going. I want you to drive me to the dock and leave. I shall go further on my own. Akachi gaped at him. But sir, the dock at this time is not safe for you. Please let me accompany you. Akachi, I don't want to hear anything. Do as you are told. Bodega said firmly and looked outside the window, his heart pounding hard in his chest as he replayed the phone call he received last night about the meeting he was about to attend. He knew he couldn't escape it even when he wanted to, and he had to face it. For Ariti, for his daughters, and for his people who he loved dearly. He had no choice but to be strong and face his fears. Isn't it so funny, Akachi? People think I am so powerful, the mighty Bodega who has everything. Money and power and whatnot. You are the mighty Bodega, sir, Akachi pressed. Leaders like you do not happen often, and Endassa is extremely lucky to have you. Bodega laughed, a bitter laughter. Even the mightiest of the mighties have fears. Fears that crawl onto their spines when they are alone and when they are with people. The driver pulled the car at the dock and Bodega asked them both to leave. Akachi seemed a bit reluctant but had to get out of the car too. Akachi, will you take care of my family if I am gone? Promise me. Bodega pulled the glass down and threw the scary words at him. Sir, Akachi's eyes widened. Tell me. Promise me, Bodega insisted. Why would you say so? Is everything all right? Akachi questioned anxiously. Yes, maybe, Bodega shrugged. Just take care of them for me, no matter what. Don't say like that, sir. Before Akachi could complete his sentence, Bodega had driven off. Chapter 2. As soon as Bodega drove off after dropping Akachi and his chauffeur in the direction of the old abandoned dockyard, his phone started ringing madly, which he at first ignored, but as the caller didn't seem to stop trying, he finally had to answer it. The name flashing on the screen made his already rotten mood even worse. The Petroleum Minister, Akanda, who he knew was bad news these days. Bodega gritted his teeth as he pressed the answer phone on his button. Hello. Bodega, my friend, exclaimed the ever so cheerful Akanda. What is it, Akanda? Bodega replied dryly. We had a meeting, buddy. Your assistant just called in to cancel on me. One thing about Akanda that Bodega always admired but loathed in that specific moment was his over-friendly attitude. Yeah, I have to be somewhere else. It is urgent. Let's meet tomorrow, first thing in the morning. Bodega tried to get rid of him. No, my dear friend. What could be more important than the deteriorating state of our oil wells? Akanda pressed. Please come over for a few minutes at least. It is urgent too. Irritated, Bodega checked his watch and uttered, all right, but I can't stay for too long. I have other matters to take care of. Sure, Akanda sighed in relief. I will be there in 10 minutes. We'll leave in another 10. Bodega informed and disconnected the line. He reversed the vehicle and prepared himself for another dismaying report about the current situation of oil production in Endassa. It was becoming really difficult to be in his place with all the ongoing madness. Lost in his train of thoughts, Bodega reached Akanda's residence, where the minister's assistant was waiting to receive him. He was ushered to the study, which was the most private area in the entire house. The oil minister was already seated in a cozy armchair with a table laden with different kinds of rich food. As he saw the governor entering the room, he stood up and hugged him cheerfully, giving Bodega a slight cringe. Ah, my friend Bodega, how pleased am I to see you at least. Akanda barked in his ear. Likewise. Bodega parted his shoulder awkwardly. Please have a seat. Something to drink? Akanda pointed towards his lavish bar. No, I am good. The last thing Bodega wanted was to be drunk tonight. He needed to stay sober and vigilant throughout his next meeting. Just a little bit, my friend. Akanda was pushy tonight, and it ticked Bodega off massively. Can we skip the bullshit and come straight to the point? Bodega was on the verge of losing his cool. What was it that was so urgent? Oh, my friend, like you do now know, sneered Akanda. The golden goose's stomach is empty now. Where do we get the eggs? Stop beating around the bush, will you? Bodega replied coldly. Well, have you ever wondered what happens if the wells dry out completely? Akanda sank into the chair again and emptied his glass of amber liquid in one gulp. They won't. We still have time, Bodega retorted. What if they do? Do we also follow the steps of the former officials and resign? Keep your smart mouth to yourself, Akanda. I know where we stand. I am the oil minister, Governor. It is my job to keep an eye on those things. I know exactly what I am talking about. I am in a hurry and we can discuss this in detail some other time. As if Bodega was avoiding the crucial talk altogether. You are the national hero, my dear Bodega, Akanda crowed. Do you even realize how desperately these people depend on you? The dreams you show them, they cling to those like a drowning person clutches to the straw. Are you going to do nothing to save them? Oh, shut it, Akanda. Bodega massaged his temples. I will do whatever I can. Then why won't you push the president to explore more options? He won't listen. Have you explained everything to him? The consequences? Bodega closed his eyes and rested his head on the back of the sofa. If the next meeting was something Bodega had been dreading, this wasn't easy either. The worry had been eating him up for the longest time. Some of the resources they had high hopes for had been depleted entirely and were on the verge of being abandoned. These had been kept a secret till now, but Bodega knew news like this wouldn't stay unrevealed for long, and once this happened, the hopes and dreams of many would shatter. Tell me, Bodega, my brother, is there any other way this can be dealt with? Akanda's voice brought him back to reality. Let me think. Bodega sat up straight. Do you have whiskey? Yes, yes. Akanda sprinted towards the bar and fetched an expensive-looking bottle with glass. He topped the glass with ice cubes and poured the brown liquid for the governor. Bodega took the glass and felt gratitude for the minister as he gulped down the iced drink that felt like fire running down his throat. Ah, I really needed this, he sighed. Akanda go forward and refilled his glass. One man understands another man's heart. Now tell me, why won't the president invest in exploring more resources when he knows oil is the real treasure, our treasure? His hands are tied too, Bodega murmured. The national treasury is not in very good shape either. But if we found more oil producing resources, we can get rid of all those problems, Akanda urged. I will try to suggest this to the president again. Bodega looked at his watch and stood up. I have to get somewhere and I don't want to be late. I have formed a team to tackle this issue. Hear them once, Akanda insisted. Of course, we can make sure that no one is unturned, Akanda. We shall figure something out. Bodega patted his shoulder. There has to be some way that doesn't put us on the mercy of our deeply taxed treasury. His tone went bitter at the end. Yes, my friend, I know there must be, Akanda agreed. Bodega shook his hands with the minister and said his goodbyes. Outside the study, Akanda's assistant was ready to usher him back to his car. As soon as Bodega was inside the car, he had a mini panic attack yet again. How was he even going to tackle all those problems all at once? He was a brave man and a true leader, but the challenges in front of him were monstrous. He was walking into the den of a lion, not someone like Mufasa, but the like of Scar, and he was just hoping that he comes out of it victorious and alive.
Endassa flows with milk and honey. The land is so blessed by nature with oil. The citizens them have money. They also have a stable economy. But some people them be tiffy. That on na to shapo. Chief Timbabu na to lutu. Them be gang of looters. The people them be tiffy. That on na to chapo. Chief Timbabu na to lutu. Them be wicked leaders. Oh, gang of looters. Chief Timbabu on na to tiffy. Them be gang of looters. Why you dey tiffo?